Half of the country woke up happy, half of the country woke up sad. All of Cowboy country can still be upset about Mike Gundy's comments because maybe Joe Biden did, in fact, make an appearance last night on Gundy's phone to make some semblance of an apology.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by GameTime Tickets. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Get with Game Time today. Meanwhile, we shift into the Mike Gundy gear. And, of course, we are going to talk about some TCU football, crossover style. And we also are going to talk about the Steve Lutz era beginning very successfully against a former Cowboy. But today, we start our conversation again with a former Cowboy in Mike Gundy, the GOAT, the legend, the man, the myth, the mullet that will always be recognized as the greatest coach in Oklahoma State history, unless somebody miraculously does something, in the next 15, 20 years to change that narrative. It doesn't help him, in my opinion, to come out with this level of an apology. Okay, but what is an apology? It's a regretful acknowledgement of an offense or a failure. And then Mike Gundy comes out with this: I apologize to those who my comments during Monday's media call offended. My intent was not to offend any of our fans who have supported us and this program through the years. Well, I know this is a politically driven season, and he purposely put this out during the political nonsense of who's going to be elected or not to maybe potentially die down the effect that it has, or should we say lack thereof. This is not an apology, which is why I made the joke that Joe Biden may have made an appearance last night on Mike Gundy's cell phone, because this is not an apology. And I don't even think that this is something that Mike Gundy would have texted out himself. I firmly believe that Mike Gundy slipped up and said precisely how he feels. Mike Gundy is the GOAT. He is the legend. He deserves the statue no matter what. But at the same time, this is a new day and age in college football. You can't be a complete Nick Saban, hard A style of guy, but not have the wins and the trophies to go with it. You can't be completely dismissive of anybody who decommits or potentially explores other options outside of Stillwater, Oklahoma, as automatically weak and immature and not loyal and not true. Some of it, yes. But here's the difficulty for Oklahoma State fans is we have been so preconditioned to just, ad nauseum produce statements like he didn't want to be here, he shouldn't have been here. And although sometimes that is applicable, there are guys who decommit or leave, and you have to wonder whether the word commitment even means anything anymore. But you also have to hold yourself accountable. And this seems to be the failure at Oklahoma State. And unfortunately, it has been this way for a little while now. The success on the football field has been masked over this now becoming some sort of a trend. 2020, of course, you had the OEN t-shirt stuff going on with Chuba Hubbard. After Chuba Hubbard's 2,100-yard season, we anticipated that we were going to have the ability to compete for a Big 12 title, potentially win a Big 12 title, regardless of the COVID stuff that happened or how that was navigated from Mike Gundy and his staff. It just kept growing, and it was a bad season. Then 2021 happened. And as I had said previously, and I took some flack for it, in my opinion, to some degree, winning it to the level that we did in 2021 was almost a bad thing for Mike Gundy because it gave him a false sense of security. And then we saw that kind of transpire the next season. And last year didn't go very swimmingly in the beginning. Of course, Mike Gundy was able to dive back in, regalvanize the locker room with some of the veteran leadership that fast forwarded to 20 returning starters and 90% of the roster. So a lot of people believed what Mike Gundy was doing, what Mike Gundy was saying, what Mike Gundy was portraying. Although we had some disgruntled players and some disgruntlement, naturally that has popped up over the years, Oklahoma State University has done a very good job controlling the negative things that are said about Mike Gundy, whether it be from former players, current players who are in a bad situation, i.e. somebody like a Jason Queso Brooks, whatever the case may be, we have been so predispositioned to automatically believe in Mike Gundy, to put down anybody who has any dissenting voices about Oklahoma State or Mike Gundy. And I think that is what's given him that false sense of security, to where now he can be dead last, 0-6 in the conference. And instead of taking ownership, right, holding himself accountable, letting the fan base know, this is where we failed, this is where we went wrong, this is where I have failed, and this is what we're going to try to do to fix it moving forward. We've got none of that. Instead, we've gotten a constant doubling down of, yes, the players are weaker, the parents are weaker, families, everybody just has the quitter mentality, and it's all on them. He could have fired somebody, at least just to make a public presence of a statement, but that didn't happen. So he doubled down on his own brand once again. And now he's attacking the fans. I've never seen any coach ever do something to this degree at their own fans. Right? There have been several coaches across the country over the course of time that have said some very disparaging things about the opposing fans or the opposing team or the opposing coaches. That is somewhat normal. And there are times when coaches need to call their own players out for things that are completely inexcusable. That is all understandable and welcome. But we have an inability to hold ourselves accountable. And by we, I mean the people within the Oklahoma State football office. Guys, you had the offensive coordinator at Utah retire on his own because he recognized the fact that he was making Kyle Whittingham and the university look bad. Are we going to get that from Casey Dunn? Obviously not. Are we going to get that from anybody else on staff? Clearly not. We're also not going to get Mike Gundy forcing the issue and making people understand that he understands the gravity of the situation. He's willing to fix it. That is not happening. And then he gives out this ridiculousness of an apology, if you can call it that. But I think, again, this highlights that Mike Gundy doesn't care about what he said, because Mike Gundy believes in what he said. Mike Gundy has said a lot of things, and I think more often than not, we as Oklahoma State faithful have backed him up. I mean, if you go to the Ollie Gordon DUI stuff earlier on in the season, maybe the verbiage he put out wasn't the greatest, but the fact that he came to the defense of Ollie Gordon, I thought it was admirable and worth having a conversation about how it's pretty cool that Mike Gundy was willing to do so. But these players and these families and these recruits and these high school coaches and trainers, they see more than just what's on the facade. They hear more. They have more conversations. So they, to some degree, have a better understanding of what's being said to all of these players and all of these recruits and all of these families, so on and so forth, to get people here. And then when they get people to Oklahoma State, is Mike Gundy doing what he said he was going to do to put them in the best positions to be successful? I think you could argue that a lot of people in Oklahoma State University campus thought that was going to happen, including the guys in the locker room, which is why they've come back. This whole NIL deal for Ollie Gordon or NIL deal for anybody else, it can be completely sidetracked, or not sidetracked, sidelined, until we can figure out what the issue is. But there seems to be a common denominator. And in this new landscape of NIL, transfer market, all that crazy stuff, you cannot have your coach out here being viewed so negatively while also coming after his own fan base, the people who don't necessarily pay his salary, but to some degree, we pay the tickets to get into the stadium, to travel to the games, to go on the road to games as well, because of our love for Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. But the bar has been raised over the years, and he is refusing to acknowledge that he's the failure. He can call us failures all day, but until he acknowledges the fact that he's the failure that has been the biggest issue for this particular team, then we're just chasing our tail. We're running around in circles. We need to get him some help, because he won't get out of him's own way. All right, maybe not the best segue of all time, but there it is. We got to talk about HIMShims, ladies and gentlemen, because whenever you're trying to be a freak in the sheets, but you can't get the daggone thing going down right, maybe you need some assistance, and HIMShims is going to help you be him. Whenever you're trying to get things more spiced up, or you're just trying to make sure that you don't have any issues later on in life, you can get him squared away today. Those intimate moments, they need to happen, and they need to be kind of spontaneous. And we always want you to be ready, and HIMS is going to provide the access to treatments that can help you stay harder, longer, and last longer as well. Give you that boost of confidence you can be ready for whenever you're in the mood. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with the access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. There's no insurance needed, and the one price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Just answer a series of questions on their site. A medical provider will determine the right treatment options if prescribed. Make sure that you start today by going to hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Be the king ding-a-ling of your bedroom or your man cave today by going to HIMS. That is hims.com/lockedon. Get your king ding-a-ling on today with HIMS. While you're doing the king ding-a-ling thing, be the king ding-a-ling with more money in your pocket by getting with FanDuel today. You already know whenever you're trying to capitalize on your monetary gains, the best in the game is FanDuel. And although the Cowboys haven't been giving us a lot of opportunities to capitalize, our NFL Cowboys have been able to do so. Right now, you can bet with the NFL action with $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your bets on NFL Cowboys all day, every day, and all in one place. So when you get that tingling sensation in the middle of the game that something crazy is about to happen, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more from the same page where you place your bets from. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Get that 150 bones back in bonus bets with your $5 winning bet by going to FanDuel.com. Do not waste that tingling sensation in your loins. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel because it is the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So you guys are probably aware that we had another decommit, and I wanted to kind of talk about the bigger overarching theme here is Donovan Jones has decided that being at Oklahoma State is no longer, in his visionary process. And if you go back to some of the guys like John Schobel, Adam Schobel, that whole ordeal of Adam Schobel being at Baylor, it raised the questions, why would somebody go to Baylor over Oklahoma State? Well, then he committed to Oklahoma State, made a lot of sense. Decommitted for TCU, and TCU is not, I don't know, they're doing better than we are, but it's not like they're setting the world on fire over there with Sonny Dykes. So it becomes more and more problematic. How is Baylor still out recruiting us? How is TCU still out recruiting us? Like there's some schools like UCF with Gus Malzahn being in Orlando, the big alumni base, very talent-rich area. Okay, that makes some sense as to why Oklahoma State wouldn't be the leader of the pack. But we've been at the bottom, and I think a lot of us have kind of glossed over the fact that we've been so downtrodden to some degree in recruiting, although some of that is purposeful, right? We do dismiss some kids at times because they don't fit the right family profile as far as, Mike Gundy said before, he wants a solid mom in the home, solid dad in the home, solid upbringing, good grades, good family atmosphere. All of that stuff is very beneficial, especially when you're trying to build something from the ground up. You have to have that layer of foundation. And just like we've talked about previously, I don't love the way that Deion Sanders is conducting his idea between his football team, bringing in a handful of high school kids and 30 transfers. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And right now, Deion Sanders doing that looks a little bit better than us building from within, because the building from within was predicated upon 50 ranked classes, 60 ranked classes, and then using Rob Glass to build them up to a level that they were always going to be able to exceed their own expectations. That always has worked for a long time. But the transfer market era has changed the game. I'm sure some of you have seen that DJ McKinney, a Colorado cornerback, the transfer from Oklahoma State, was asked if he had any reservations just a couple days ago, and he said absolutely not. Moving on from Oklahoma State was the best decision I've ever made. And same with Dernell Jernigan that went from Oklahoma State to Mizzou. And it is an issue, right? Look at John Paul Richardson at TCU. whenever some of these guys leave and they don't have positive things to say, they're not necessarily being negative all the time. But then the ones that are negative, we squash it. We say, that's bullcrap. That kid's a liar. His parents are liars. And he didn't want to be at Oklahoma State, so we don't want him at Oklahoma State. And again, some of that is applicable. There are instances that pop up that would provide you the opportunity to honestly, realistically rescind somebody's offer if it's for a good enough reason. Just like there are legitimate issues that are going to pop up that allow you to say, you know what, man, maybe you shouldn't be at Oklahoma State. But we fire people. I'm sorry. We don't fire people. We let kids quit, or we convince kids to leave Oklahoma State, and then we roll out the same exact product, and we keep doing the same things, and we roll out the same dudes. So from a recruiting perspective, Donovan Jones has decommitted, as has Isaiah Tanner Butler, as has Jordan Covington, as has Adam Schobel, as has a couple other dudes. And we've missed out on some guys, especially some of the bigger time Okies. But if we don't stop the bleeding, this is going to continue to be an issue. I don't want to say that we're going to have, the big 25, 26, 28 people transfer out like we did in 22, 23, but it is a possibility. And it starts with Mike Gundy, because the conversations about, Oklahoma State, when it comes to high school recruits, that can snowball and build momentum. And I think we saw that, which is why for at least a little bit of time, we were a top 25 club in recruiting. But some of it is a wait and see approach, right? Some of these individuals are waiting to see how the season goes, how the maturation process within the roster is evident, and what coaching staff moves are made, or what the offense looks like, or what the scheme defensively looks like. And those people who are going to wait and see, those are the ones that we're not going to be able to get. Like, unfortunately, we're in a position now where the guys who have other big-time offers accessible to them more often than not are starting to choose those other offers, or they're starting to back off of their, staunch commitment to Oklahoma State a little bit. And when do we as fans stop pointing the finger at the kid and the players and the parents all the time, and at least realize that Mike Gundy's inability to hold himself accountable might be an issue that permeates outside of Stillwater and might linger over into the recruiting realm? As we've discussed previously, there have been high school coaches I've talked to out on the recruiting trail and personal trainers that have point blank said, we're not comfortable sending our kids to Stillwater because we don't know that they're honestly going to get used the way they were recruited to get used. And some of that does happen everywhere, and some positions need to be adjusted once you get to college. So some of it is a sales pitch. But again, if you're winning, that sales pitch is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to walk people off of a ledge, or tell people to calm down a little bit, or trust the process, trust the plan, trust the program, if you're winning. Now, I think all of us have been able to dismiss the fact that we don't have very many trophies because we have a lot of wins. And we do have some big wins. Mike Gundy has put Oklahoma State in this position to be successful. But if you're hearing potentially that Brian Nardo is going to be out of a job, or Casey Dunn's going to be out of a job, and you're a defensive commit, and you have a really good relationship with Nardo, and then you find out that maybe Nardo is being somewhat constrained by who he can play, that's going to put a sour taste in your mouth. Like, you want somebody to be upfront and honest with you. And if a university is going to say, hey, we have Ollie Gordon, so if you come, you're going to be a backup. Okay, cool. But if Ollie Gordon gets injured, you're going to be provided some opportunities. Well, that has to be applicable for all positions. And we know Mike Gundy is very reluctant to, actually, he has the inability to choose the right daggone quarterback. And if you don't have a quarterback in your recruiting class, it does become slightly difficult. And if you do have a cornerstone of your class, like a Jalen Beckley, like a Michael Riles, if they're hearing nothing but pushing the blame off on other people, and the buck never stopping with Mike Gundy or Casey Dunn or Brian Nardo, then that is going to leave a sour taste in anybody's mouth. And then on top of it, if other universities are rolling out the red carpet for our legacy guys, when we don't do the same thing, we can't be surprised when they decide to go elsewhere. We've missed out on a lot of legacy dudes over the last 4 or 5 years. Some of them have lived in the state of Oklahoma. That is frustrating. But at the same time, we seemingly always give a pass because of Rob Glass and the ability to take 2 and 3 stars and turn them into some NFL guys. But it's also been based off of the Cowboy culture being really, really positive and having a very good foundation. The Cowboy culture right now is simply a reflection of the leadership, right? And that's why when the locker room goes up and down and we win and lose and things seem to be going completely sideways, that's because they're doing it without a leader up top. Like Mike Gundy says a lot of things and he does a lot of things, and we have won a lot of games. But this is about the future of Oklahoma State University. If we ever want to have another Boone Pickens, we have to at least hold ourselves accountable. Mike Gundy's not doing that. And this is just more evidence of it. He gives an apology. We have more decommits. I'm sure there's going to be more decommits coming because the conversations that are being had between the recruits are like, what is happening in Stillwater? And is it going to get fixed? And who is the main culprit? And these answers are not being given, or the answers that are being given are likely not so set in stone that it makes a whole lot of sense. So Mike Gundy should perhaps stop calling the fans, talking honestly as the problem, and he should be more reflective. He should maybe be more like the Utah offensive coordinator that respected the University of Utah so much that he retired midseason on his own. If you would have fired somebody, you probably get a pass. If you would have shown the fan base, the recruiting, the team, the donors, that you have an understanding of how to fix this, then you would probably get a pass here. But you have doubled down and doubled down again and doubled down again and tripled down so much that you have alienated a significant amount of the fan base. I'm over it. I'm done with Mike Gundy. I'm sure he'll get another year just because of the contract financially being so daggone big. So that means for the next year and a half, we just have to suffer through whatever it is. And Mike Gundy will tell us all, you should just be happy that I'm still here, that we're still fielding a football team. You should just be happy that you expect to win 8 to 10 games. You should just be happy. Or you should go get an extra job to pay your bills and take care of your families better, you bunch of brokies. Or figuratively speaking, who knows? I don't know. But I do know we got to talk about some other opportunities. Other opportunities for you to stay in the game no matter what is going on. And as we all know, as the weather gets colder, the flu season and all that is going to be around the corner. So the last thing you want to do when you're trying to get your drink on to watch the Cowboys, which is the only really way to do it anymore, you don't want extra stuff adding on top of it. Get ZBiotics, because ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct inside your gut. It is that byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol procedure produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. Just remember, make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll always feel your best tomorrow. Whenever you're trying to watch the Cowboys, you're probably going to need some alcohol. And if you don't drink alcohol, you're probably not watching the Cowboys a whole lot. Regardless, if you are going to drink the alcohol, have the right step with your pre-alcohol probiotic first, then drink responsibly, and then enjoy the next day. Make sure that you go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege, all one word, to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee. If you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund you your money, no questions asked. Remember to head over to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use that code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Get squared away today. ZBiotics can help you feel your best the day after a potentially a rough game. Get ZBiotics in you today. It's going to help you tremendously as you look forward to seeing more Cowboys. On top of that, we have to mention Game Time Tickets. It doesn't just have to be sports, ladies and gentlemen. Music, comedy, theater, it doesn't matter. Game Time has the Game Time picks, which makes it much easier for you to find the right deals for you without having to search through thousands of tickets for thousands of hours. The Game Time pick makes it easier and saves you more on sports, comedy, music, theater, and more. The seat view gives you a panoramic view of the seat before you buy, so there's no hanky-panky of getting put in the wrong section. The lowest price guarantee means that they will credit you back 110% of the difference. Therefore, you just need to start taking the guesswork out of you buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create that account, redeem that code, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today because you already know what time it is. It's game time. So we're going to finish this thing off here with Chad Weiberg. The job that I think a lot of us probably wouldn't envy has now kind of popped up. I would imagine that there's been 0 points in his career, or even before he got this job, that he was ever like, I hope that I have to have major run-ins with Mike Gundy. Quite the opposite. Chad Weiberg is a Cowboy, tried and true, through and through, for most of his entire life. So he does know Mike Gundy in a completely different perspective. So he probably has a different level of respect for Mike Gundy because he was watching Mike Gundy raise the bar at Oklahoma State when he was a very young kid. So I'm sure the last thing he wanted to do was have a difficult meeting with Mike Gundy. But I do know he can have that meeting because it happened at least to some degree after the Iowa State game last season. So if Chad Weiberg is willing to have those uncomfortable conversations, now Chad Weiberg might need to take the next step. And yeah, it does need to be at least discussed about moving on because Mike Gundy has said a lot. And I personally don't see how we let this one slide given the current circumstances. I mean, but again, we all know he likely will get another year. That's okay. Chad Weiberg needs to come out and I think publicly at least let people know that this is not going to fly, that there is going to be some negative ramifications from this latest, not only ordeal with Mike Gundy, but the season in general. Everyone has been deathly afraid that if you get rid of Mike Gundy, you go backwards. But we're dead last place, and we're 0-6 in conference play. It doesn't get, we can't go any more backwards. We're legitimately, I think now it's official, statistically the worst offensive and defensive teams of all of the FBS Power Four. And that's us. That's where we are. So a new coach that could potentially inject some positivity into the fan base could be a good thing. Or maybe put Mike Gundy on a 1-year deal. Right? Mike Gundy has refused to do anything about it. We still have the same offense coordinator that we've had for years that has been a problem for years. We still have the same offensive line coach that hasn't been able to figure it out since the transition from Manhattan, Kansas to Stillwater, America. We had an O-line coach trying to teach people how to be tight ends, and we don't even use the tight end, so it's not a big surprise that we had one of those offensive guys decommit as well. Chad Weiberg, your opening act was, to some degree, really, really good. I think most people are pretty happy with J.C. Hoyt. I think everybody's extremely happy with the hire of David Taylor, the position of both basketball, men's and women's, wrestling, golf. Alan Bratton seems to have maybe figured some things back out, so that's going to save some of those difficult conversations for Chad Weiberg, but he's got to have the one with Mike Gundy. And we need to start having the conversation of make Mike Gundy less comfortable. His comfort level is the issue. Make him less comfy. Put him on a 1-year deal that has stipulations that if he fails, like he thinks the fans have been failing, then he's gone. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast. People out there, Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. We need to do more of that, right? All right. You know the drill. Later, my taters.